actually am pretty sure it's over. I don't think there'll be another season after this. We've still got the Baby Bear spinoff to look forward to. Yay! While it is true that I don't talk about We Bare Bears on this channel too much, because I was too busy covering gems and horses 24/7, I still do consider it a fantastic and very fun cartoon series. Not just for its clever humor and irresistible charm, but also for its subtle and well-spoken deeper meanings. And I know what you're thinking. What, this show? This show has deeper meanings? What is this? You got three bears that pretend they're brothers, one of them's a weeb and one of them's a Terminator chef, and they go walking down the street stacked up like Jenga? Silly old bears, you can't do that. Get out of here. But similar to Adventure Time, if you look past the surface level image and advertising, you uncover the true wonder that lies beneath. We Bare Bears is not just a slice of the bear's life, but also a slice of real life in ways that most people don't even understand. And after binging the entirety of the series and finally capping it off with the new TV movie, I gotta say that they could not have ended their series with a more potent, universal, and timeless message than they did. I'm not saying that it's some kind of piece of animation gold that people are gonna start analyzing in film schools or anything. Heck, I'm probably the only person that's gonna analyze it, period. But if you look at the underlying themes of the franchise and the way some people still behave in the world today, I feel like this is a movie that everyone, especially the younger generation of kids, should watch and appreciate. And I'm about to tell you why. Keep in mind there will be spoilers for the movie in this video, so if you haven't watched it yet, go check it out right now. But for everyone else, let's climb to the top of the food chain as I explain why everyone should watch We Bare Bears, the movie. Let's start by talking about the themes of the franchise as a whole. We Bare Bears is a show that perfectly portrays multiple examples of how it feels to be an outsider. Every recurring character in this series is an outcast for one reason or another. The bears, being different species from different upbringings, fail to understand the social norms that come with living in a human society. Grizz is an extreme extrovert who doesn't really understand people's personal boundaries and comes up with extremely elaborate schemes just to get people to like him. And when you realize that he comes from a sitcom background where overly friendly people and wacky schemes of the week are common and actual knowledge about human society is limited, you understand where these tendencies come from. Panda, on the other hand, is both very introverted and a hopeless romantic, who basically thinks that any girl who looks at him in a nice way is instant girlfriend material. And this is also logical because little Pan Man was raised in isolation for most of his life, with his only friend being a little stuffed panda who didn't exactly talk to him. This means that he never really gained much experience or developed any social skills, especially with the opposite gender. And Ice Bear is... Ice Bear. Yeah, not much to elaborate on there. Everything about him is pretty odd. Still love him though. And you get even more angles of outsider when you look at the side cast. Chloe is a child prodigy studying in college who finds it intimidating to be social because of how much bigger and older and more experienced everyone around her is. Ranger Tabes is a forest ranger who takes her job incredibly seriously, despite her job often being seen as simple or mundane or unimportant compared to other legal professions. Heck, one of her fellow rangers, Martinez, tends to just sleep whenever he's on the clock. Charlie, being a Bigfoot, is almost never seen for the clumsy but lovable goof he is, and more of just a strange entity to be photographed and exploited just because he looks weird, leading to a firmly ingrained fear of humanity. Heck, even Nom Nom to a certain extent, who's been coasting solely on his internet fame for years and hasn't really forged any lasting relationships with real people. As a result, when real-world problems strike him like anger issues or loneliness, he has no clue how to deal with these problems aside from just throwing money at them. A different situation from everyone else, but still something that makes him an outcast. All of these characters are different from the norm in some way, shape, or form, either for what they look like, how they act, or where they're from. But the show doesn't present being an outsider as some kind of toxic blemish on the world. If anything, it celebrates it, showing that sometimes the outcasts are the ones that can lead us to brighter tomorrows, building inventions that could revolutionize the world, solving mysteries that would otherwise go unchecked, and using one's particular set of weird skills to help others or raise awareness for a good cause. It even subtly shows just how accepting modern-day society has become. I mean, the show does take place in the present-day San Francisco Bay Area, meaning this is supposed to represent what our culture is like now. And notice that in the grand majority of episodes, the fact that the main characters are bears is rarely ever an issue. It's brought up sometimes, like when they need to go on diets for health-related reasons, but a lot of the time people talk to them normally, welcome them into places, and even allow them into certain groups or social circles. And they don't even think twice about what they look like or what species they are. They just see them as unique individuals. Heck, my main man Panda is able to pick up human girls, and never once are they distracted by the fact that he's a bear. They just like him for him. That's progressivism if ever there was. The show doesn't shy away from the fact that there are people that will only see appearances or outward behavior and judge accordingly, but for the majority of the time, people don't just see 3 bears, they see 3 people. It's not only realistic since the majority of people nowadays are more accepting of differences than they've ever been, but it's also a great way to present such a message to kids. It helps keep their attention with the cute image of 3 bears and their silly antics, while also feeding them subtext about general acceptance of those different from them. I mean, you can't get much more out there than 3 bears living in your area, and if society can accept them, then why shouldn't we accept others that maybe look or act a little different than us? However, we do have to remember that society is still a social order that needs leadership. Which brings up a question. What would happen if someone with authority on how society is run decided to remove you from your place in it simply based on what you are instead of who you are? And that brings us to We Bare Bears, the movie. Now keep in mind that I watched this entire series front to back to prepare for this movie, and I'm currently working on videos which catalog my thoughts on all 4 seasons. Check out my We Binge Bears playlist to see what I've got so far. And speaking just from a narrative and fan service perspective, this isn't the best thing to come out of the franchise. A lot of the classic kids movie tropes are in play here, like the road trip storyline, the big fight and breakup in the 3rd act, etc. The sidecast suffers from SpongeBob movie syndrome, where they only get a little screen time near the beginning and the end with barely any impact on the story. Tapes, Chloe, Lucy, Daryl, Charlie, Nom Nom, usually just one scene or even just one line from them, and that's it. And there is an excess of internet memes in certain scenes, which some might find a little cringy. A lot of the ones that they use are pretty old though, like Pineapple Pen and Gangnam Style, so maybe it's more of a tribute to internet trends in general? It's up to you to make your own judgment. It's far from a bad movie though, with plenty of charm in the brothers' interactions, a nice arc for Grizz who just wants to keep his little bro safe, plenty of decent jokes, some nice cameos in the intro, and some spot-on emotional moments. So on a surface level, I would say that this is a cute, fun, and satisfying film, if a little bit cliche. But that's not why we're here. We're here to focus on the real selling point of the movie, because once you peel back the surface of memes, dreams, and hippie machines, you uncover an extremely timeless and potent message that should still be preached long after this movie is forgotten. The message of acceptance. The movie starts with the bears causing some public disturbance, all ending with them knocking out the entire city's power after making an insane internet video. And as a result of their misconduct, a police officer named Officer Murphy adds some new misdemeanors to a bear complaint file. Now, I'm no legal expert, but from what I've read, when someone files a complaint, they describe the type of compensation that they want and the reason they're entitled to it. Then a court case goes through to see if they actually get it. So technically speaking, Officer Murphy is treating the bears the exact same as everyone else when it comes to the legal system. The bears did some things wrong, even if most of them were accidental, and they deserve to be blamed and punished for them. It is possible that the complaint file is filling up way too quickly, leading to some people getting restless for justice, but there's no unfair treatment when it comes to the bears and the law here, and while it may take a while, they will be held accountable eventually. But then everything changes when they introduce our antagonist for the evening. This is Agent Trout, an animal control officer who claims that he has the answer to everyone's problems, and his solution is to simply remove the bears from the city and return them to their original environments. He believes that there is a natural order that must be maintained, where animals stay in the wild and humans stay in society, and he intends to use his power in order to maintain this balance, going as far as to lock up the bears in cages just for being bears, and in some cases, even resorting to overly brutal violence against them. So yeah, if you didn't pick up on that already, what we have here is a close-minded, overly conservative authority figure that sees the bears only as 3 species that belong in the wild, essentially devaluing them as individuals. To him, the problem is not that the bears did some wrong things and should be punished accordingly, the problem is that the bears are integrated into human society in the first place. It doesn't matter if they've proven to be social, hold down jobs, own homes, make friends, and pretty much do everything that a normal person can do, they cannot be people. Things have always been done a certain way, and they should stay that way. The fact that they're bears is the true problem. This, in my opinion, is the perfect logical endpoint for the themes of the series. The bears have had scrapes with the law multiple times in the past, but they've always been punished like anyone would. You know, being told to do some kind of service for the community or the police force to pay off their debt. Meanwhile, this is the first case where an active legal force is pushing back on the bears simply for the fact that they're bears and nothing else. And I'm not gonna lie, I think this is something that's really important for kids to witness. Sooner or later, they're gonna need to understand that certain authority figures won't always have their best interests at heart. Some have their own agendas and will use everything within their power to make sure things fit within them. And a lot of those agendas can involve treating people less like people for extremely surface level and arbitrary reasons, squishing them into groups instead of looking at them all as individuals. But anyone who's watched the series or even just seen their interactions in the movie know that the bears are people with feelings and relationships that don't deserve to be judged so unfairly. So what do the bears do? They stand up and tell Trout, no, being different is not wrong. You're wrong. And with time, change eventually came through, and bears of all kinds were accepted into society, all because they took a stand for what they believed in. This is a good example of pulling off the veil and showing kids that these kinds of people do exist, and hatred of people for how they look and act still exists. But the chance of bringing forth change through acceptance, kindness, and teaching others the same ideas also exists. And if a new generation is able to take these ideas to heart, they're gonna grow up to be very accepting, understanding, and wonderful people. But luckily, Trout is not the only officer that plays a major role in the movie. There's also Officer Murphy, who accompanies Trout and kinda acts as a bumbling sidekick. Now, I already talked about how close-minded and species-ist Trout is, and if he was the only prominent official in the whole movie, it would give off the vibe that every other person in law enforcement has the same exact mindset. And I think that would kinda muddle the message, since we wouldn't be looking at individuals and instead just assuming that all the cops are the bad guys. But the presence of Murphy in this movie helps to balance everything out. From the very beginning, Murphy is judging the bears fairly, and it's clear that he can look past the different colored fur and see three individual people. But when Trout takes the reins and leads the chase against the bears, Murphy is kinda caught in the middle. He probably starts thinking, well, the bears have definitely gotten more complaints than anyone else in the city. Maybe he's right. Maybe the bears do just need to be sent back to the wild. But after witnessing more and more of the brutal, biased, one-track mind of Trout, who simply sees the bears as beasts to be conquered and captured, he remembers his own experiences with the bears. They're troublemakers, yeah, but they admit that they did wrong, they're willing to take responsibility, and at the end of the day, they have lives to live in the city with friends and family that love them. And this eventually leads to Murphy taking part in the big bear rescue during the climax, and even using his authority to pull some strings, and help the bears get noticed for the individuals they are. Now, I'm extremely happy that they went this route with the character. It shows that it is possible for certain systems to be faulty or corrupt or out of date in their reasoning. And when that's the case, those systems need to be replaced with something that works better. I mean, if bears can walk and talk and whatnot, the animal control department definitely needs to make some updates. But just because a system isn't working, that doesn't mean you should place the blame on every single person in it. There are those in power that understand people's struggles, those that will listen to people they protect and lead, and those that can even use their power or image to make things better. And the main advantage that Murphy had above Trout is that he was open-minded the entire time. Trout did all he could to present a one-sided argument and show off how apparently bad the bears can be, and the crowd that was angry at them already pretty much ate it up without a second thought. But as Murphy followed Trout around, he took the time to open his eyes and realize that what he was being fed was wrong, and he eventually did what he could to right this injustice and give the bears the equal treatment that they deserved. It further feeds into the whole moral that people deserve to be judged by their individual actions, not by labels or colors. And even if it's just one person who cares, that's still one person who cares, and they shouldn't be lumped together with everyone else doing wrong. And of course, there's the big speech that occurs at the animal rave, where tons of different species of viral animals all sympathize with the bears, because they were judged for surface level features as well, like always looking angry or painting with their nose. And the animals eventually realize that they're doing the exact same thing themselves, leading to a really sweet emotional scene and another sad example of what judging people can lead to. Like, imagine what could happen when these animals' 5 minutes of fame are up. What if they want to get serious careers or relationships after this? What if Angry Cat wants to get a partner, or Painting Elephant wants to paint for more high-class clients? But they can't because people only judge them based on their weird appearances or quirks. Imagine what a sad, sad existence that would be. Wow, okay, thanks movie, you made me sympathize with dank memes. I hope you're happy. Now, some people might argue that the message isn't super subtle, and to an extent, I get what they mean. I mean, Trout is completely one-dimensional, with his only personality being, "Get the bears! Cage the bears! I don't like the bears!" And yes, some speeches can be very on the nose about the moral, but subtle or not, I do think this is a message that should be heard by everyone, regardless of age. It didn't matter if this movie aired on the 8th, on the 30th, or even 3 years from now. The message of seeing past the surface would still hold up because that message is timeless and ageless. We Bare Bears the movie on its own is still a ton of fun, a solid 7 out of 10 for entertainment value alone, but the message and how well it's laid out is what puts it over the top for me, and turns this into a movie that I think everyone should watch. It proves that if you're different from the norm for one reason or another, you don't deserve to be ridiculed. You deserve to be accepted. And anyone who says otherwise and refuses to budge on their ideals don't deserve the time of day. We Bare Bears has always embraced equality and diversity, even showing off respectful portrayals of many different cultures, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. I'm not sure if this is the last time we'll ever see the adult bears, but if this is where we say goodbye, I've definitely been left satisfied. Extremely teary-eyed, but still satisfied. I'll definitely be returning to this show often. I'll definitely be watching the Baby Bear spin-off when it eventually comes out. I'll definitely be thanking Daniel Chung for his amazing work, and I'll always remember 3 lines from the trio, which pretty much sums up this entire franchise and why it's so amazing.
And that would make us brothers!
But we don't even look alike.
I know! That's like the best part!
It sure is, little buddy. It sure is.